Good morning. That was the sound of a gavel. It's my pleasure to call this meeting of the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality to order. Today is Wednesday, April 22nd, 2020. The time is 9:30 a.m., and I'll begin with a roll call. Good morning, Commissioner Lindley. Are you there? How about Commissioner Janeka? Are you there?
Trying new technology. I'm unmuted now. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Great. Commissioner Lindley, are you there? All right. We seem to be missing, at least for the moment, Commissioner Lindley. Commissioner, I'll invite you just to butt in wherever we are when you're able to join us. This is John Neerman speaking. Two of our commissioners are present, so we have a quorum. So we'll continue on and look forward to Commissioner Lindley joining us in a moment. How about our General Counsel, Ms. Smith? Are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
And our Public Interest Counsel? Vic, are you on the line? Seem to have what I'm guessing is maybe some technological problems. Ms. Smith, I have sort of some comments in the nature of preamble before we get to the docket this morning, and maybe what I'll do is proceed with those and then pause and see if we've been able to gather up Commissioner Lindley and our Public Interest Counsel. And I'm going to begin with a statement of the obvious. We're holding this meeting over a conference line, so I'd like to remind everyone to keep their phones on mute unless they're speaking. It's important to unmute when you do speak. I'd also like to remind everyone who's here only to listen that they can also watch the meeting online, and that link is available on the agenda notice. For each item where argument or discussion is allowed, we will inform the speakers of their time limits. The registration to speak closed at 9:30, but if you'd like to address the Commission on a particular item, please email agenda@tceq.texas.gov with your name, affiliation, and the item number that you'd like to comment on, and we'll do our best to accommodate that request. And again, the email is agenda@tceq.texas.gov. For those who are making presentations, I'll ask you to please wait to begin until I have asked you to begin speaking, or the General Counsel may ask you to begin speaking. I'd also like to have you make sure that your line is unmuted before you proceed. And with that, I'm going to, Ms. Smith, invite you in just a moment to call the first item. But I do have three topics that I want to address at the top of the meeting. The first concerns the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, and I'm going to be a bit of a broken record on this. The most urgent and important responsibility of our staff and every Texan is to slow transmission of this virus. It's highly contagious. It has caused immense suffering, and it has already claimed the lives of more than 500 of our fellow Texans, and it continues to exact a terrible human toll. So please do not become complacent. Please continue to take care of yourselves and others by practicing distancing, hand washing, avoiding touching your face. For concerned citizens and members of the regulated community, please know that while TCEQ has adapted the way we deliver our services, that we do continue to deliver those important services. And as always, we're here and we are eager to help you. For our staff, I want to thank you again for your nimble response in maintaining our agency's operations. While many of our friends and family members are suffering the economic toll of this pandemic, we're fortunate to have not only employment, but important and meaningful work to do. And our mission to help protect public health and the environment now includes helping our communities respond to the pandemic and ultimately to recover economically. So keep up the good work. It is as important as ever. All right, so that's the pandemic. It's also Earth Day today, the 50th anniversary. And Earth Day is really, in my mind, a collective expression of the importance of environmental protection. The environmental movement of the last half century reminds us that we are all in this together, and that understanding is especially salient now. With regard to environmental protection, we certainly have a lot of work ahead of us, but the successes of the last half century demonstrate the power of working together. We all share that responsibility. Every citizen shares that responsibility. And I'll add that it also happens to be in our individual best interests. Finally, I have a comment on staffing. It's already been announced, but I want to recognize and thank Stephanie Bergeron-Perdue, who left the agency at the end of last month. Stephanie served the agency in many capacities over the years, including as interim executive director and most recently as deputy executive director. She was a trusted advisor to me and many of the agency's leaders over the years. I miss her good judgment, her pragmatism, her optimism, and her wonderful sense of humor. The silver lining to her departure is that it's made some room for bringing some of the agency's superstars into the executive brain trust. Kelly Keel Linden is serving in the executive office in an interim capacity while we onboard L'Oreal Stepney and Ramiro Garcia to more permanent positions in the executive suite. I'm glad to get to work more directly with each of you. So colleagues, that ends my sort of comments in the nature of preamble to the meeting. I want to pause here and check, first of all, and let me ask, I'm hearing a little bit of feedback, so I would ask people to double check their lines if they're not speaking to mute them.
Good morning, Chairman.
I hear you. Yeah, good morning, Commissioner. Good morning, Commissioner Lindley.
Happy Earth Day.
I'm glad
for the technical difficulties.
Yeah, happy Earth Day. I'm glad you could join us. Mr. McWhorter, are you on the line?
I am. Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine. Thank you. All right. So, and Commissioner Janecki, you're still there, right?
Still present.
Okay. So we have all of our commissioners present now. I wanted to pause and give my colleagues on the dais an opportunity to make any comments, since I've monopolized the first several minutes of this call, and then we'll get into our docket. Commissioner Lindley, do you have anything to add this morning?
I don't. I'm sad today that we can't participate in all the fun and I think exciting Earth Day activities the agency had planned, but we'll get those up and running once that's appropriate and once we can do it safely. But it's great to be on the line with y'all today, and appreciate all the staff that has gone into making sure these agendas can still run and operate smoothly. I know it's a lot. I mean, even this morning I was signed on and then I don't know what happened, but I'm here now, and I know a lot of people have worked hard to get us up and running this way. And so just echo what you said as far as appreciating everyone's efforts during this COVID time, and also echo that I too am very excited for L'Oreal and Ramiro to step into their new roles. So with that, I will stop.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Lindley. Commissioner Janecka?
No particular comments from me other than to just say I couldn't agree more enthusiastically with your remarks, Chairman. I appreciate the urging our employees and the public to continue to take seriously our social distancing efforts at this time, and also join you in wishing everyone happy Earth Day and welcoming Stephanie well as she heads on to other adventures and and just celebrating our agency's growth and marking that occasion as we change and great faces move to new spots within our agency. I'm really looking forward to working with everyone in these new roles. Thank you so much.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Commissioner Ginecca. Ms. Smith, I'll ask you to call the first item.
Item number 1 is an application by RR417 LLC for new TPDES permit number WQ0015713001. The parties have been notified that the commissioners will not take oral argument but may ask questions. We have numerous individuals, nearly 200, have signed in on this item, and their presence will be noted for the record.
Thank you. So for the benefit of those, and let me welcome everybody who is joining this call, especially those of you who don't normally attend our agenda meetings. I wanted to let you know for those of you who are not familiar with our process, we have a 2-part analysis for considering requests for contested cases. First, we consider whether the requesters have met the procedural and substantive requirements to be entitled to a contested case. And then, assuming that at least one requester meets the requirements, we then consider which issues are appropriate to refer. So part 1 is about who gets a hearing, and part 2 is about which issues are referred. Requesters who are affected in a manner different from the general public and who have articulated personal concerns that are relevant and material to their permit and have done so both in timely comments and a timely hearing request are entitled to a hearing. Associations can have standing if they name at least one member who would have standing in his or her own right and raise issues that are both germane to the association's purpose and also relevant to this application. So colleagues, I'm going to recommend that we do grant some of these requests. As for the associations, the Friends of Hondo Canyon has, in my view, met the requirements for associational standing, so I would grant their requests. The remaining associations, in my review, I thought failed to identify a member who would have standing in his or her own right. So it's my view that we have to deny those requests. As for the individuals, I found that the following people have satisfied the procedural and substantive requirements for a contested case hearing. And those are Charles and John Blackwell, Edgar and Laura Finner, and Glenn and Sandra Rainey. So we should grant their requests. Ms. Saunders, the Nolans, and the Little Pages own property that's between 1.7 and 2.7 miles downstream of the discharge point. And given the relatively small discharge from the proposed facility and the requester's considerable distance from the outfall, they have not, in my view, articulated a personal justiciable interest. So I would deny those requests. The remaining requesters, and again, they are numerous, are located more than 5 miles from the facility and the outfall, and that's simply too far for those requesters to be affected in a manner different from the general public. So I would also deny their requests. And I think that disposes of the requests, and I wanted to check in with you first, Commissioner Lindley, to see how you came out on those.
I came out the same with those individuals on the Friends of Hondo Canyon, all the appropriate hearing requests.
Great. And Commissioner Ginecca, how about you?
That completely tracked with my analysis in terms of affectedness, individuals, and associations. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's turn to the issues. And again, especially for the benefit of those who are not familiar with our process, we refer issues that have been timely raised by an affected person and that are relevant and material to the application. Or stated another way, the issues must be within the agency's jurisdiction on this type of application. So, for example, we can't consider economic impact, such as to property values. We generally can't consider increased traffic or noise. We generally can't consider air quality concerns in connection with a water quality permit, and the like. So the affected persons here have raised numerous issues, and colleagues, I've organized these into 8 that I think should be referred, and they are the following: whether the draft permit is protective of water quality, including anti-degradation requirements, whether it is protective of both groundwater and wells, whether it is protective of the health of the requesters, their families, livestock, and wildlife, whether the application accurately depicts the location of the outfall, whether the application satisfies applicable public notice requirements, whether the applicant's compliance history raises an issue regarding its ability to comply with the permit, whether the Commission should alter the draft permit or deny the application in consideration of need under Texas Water Code Section 26.0282, and whether the draft permit complies with the requirements relating to site suitability and odor. So those were my 8 issues. And Commissioner Lindley, how did you see it?
I agree with the 8. I don't have any to add to the issues list. Thank you for laying them out.
Yep. Commissioner Ginecka?
Likewise, I'm in agreement. I think that captures all of the issues from all the issues from all the parties who are determined to be affected. Proposed to be. Thank you.
Appreciate that. We also had requests for reconsideration on numerous issues, but those issues were all either addressed in response to comments or they're issues that will be referred to SOA. So I think we should deny those requests for reconsideration. Also, since there are not too many parties left in the matter at this point, I think it would be appropriate to refer this to our ADR program to give them an opportunity to settle the matter prior to a hearing at SOA. And then ultimately, if we get to SOA, to allow the full 180 days for the hearing. And I think that addresses all of the outstanding issues. Commissioner Lindley, any disagreement, or is there anything I missed?
I don't believe so. In fact, I can attempt to lay out a motion if you gentlemen are ready.
I'm ready.
Okay, I move that we grant the hearing request filed by Charles and John Blackwell, Edgar and Laura Finner, Glenn and Sandra Rainey, and Friends of Hondo Canyon, that we deny all remaining hearing requests and all requests for reconsideration, that we refer the matter to the TCEQ's Alternative Dispute Resolution Program for an initial 4 to 6 week ADR period before the SOA preliminary hearing scheduling process begins, that we refer the application to SOA for a contested case hearing concerning the following issues. Issue A, whether the draft permit is protective of water quality, including compliance with applicable anti-degradation requirements. Issue B, whether the draft permit is protective of groundwater and wells. Issue C, whether the draft permit is protective of the health of the requesters and their families, livestock, and wildlife. Issue D, whether the application accurately depicts the location of the outfall and satisfies applicable public notice requirements. Issue E, whether the applicant's compliant history raises an issue regarding the applicant's ability to comply with the material terms of the permit, warranting altering the terms of the draft permit or denial. Issue F, whether the Commission should alter the terms and conditions of the draft permit or deny the application based on the consideration of need under Texas Water Code 26.0282. Issue G, whether the draft permit complies with applicable requirements in 30 Texas Administrative Code 309.13 relating to site suitability and odor abatement, and set the hearing duration for the proceeding at 180 days from the date of the preliminary hearing to the issuance of the proposal for decision.
I would second that motion.
Motion has been made and seconded. Commissioner Lindley, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Janeka?
Aye.
I also vote aye. The motion carries. Ms. Smith, when you're ready, I'll ask you to call the next item.
Item number 2 is the application by La Hoist America of Texas LLC for an amendment to air quality permit number 9009. The parties have been notified that the commissioners will not take oral argument but may ask questions. The presence of those signed in on this item will be noted for the record.
Colleagues, again, for the benefit of those who are not familiar with our process, we have a two-part analysis for considering requests for contested cases. First, we consider whether the requesters have met procedural and substantive requirements to be entitled to a contested case. In this case, given the proposed production rate of the facility and the maximum emission rates that are allowed in the draft permit, and the fact that none of the requesters live near the facility, closest being more than 2 miles away, it's my view that none of the requesters have articulated a personal justiciable issue different from the general public. So, colleagues, I would recommend that we deny these requests. And Commissioner Lindley, I'd like to take first your view.
Excuse me, I came down the same way. I don't think in this situation it's appropriate to carry request.
Commissioner, you're a little fuzzy. We had a little interference there. I'm not sure where it's coming from, but would you mind repeating your comment?
I'm in agreement with you. I don't have anything to add. Hopefully that sounds a little better.
You came through loud and clear that time. Thank you. I appreciate
Okay.
that. Commissioner Janeka?
I think that certainly aligns with my thinking as well. I think the proposed changes to the permit, the expected impacts, and then likely effects on those individuals don't rise to the level of effectiveness, in my view.
Appreciate that. I'll entertain a motion.
I would make a motion that we deny all hearing requests, issue the amendment to air quality permit number 9009 to La Hoist North America of Texas as recommended by the Executive Director, and adopt the Executive Director's response to comments.
I second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Commissioner Lindley, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Janeka?
Aye.
I also vote aye. The motion carries. Ms. Smith, when you're ready, I'll ask you to call the next item.
That takes us to our enforcement docket, items 3 through 34. Late yesterday afternoon, the ED filed a request to remand item 18 for further case development, which remains pending before the Commission and should also be taken up this morning. The Executive Director's staff is here to present the matters.
Morning. I'll ask staff to proceed when they're ready.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners, General Counsel, and Public Interest Counsel. Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine. Thank you.
Great, thanks. For the record, my name is Melissa Cordell of the Enforcement Division, and with me today are Brian Sinclair, also of the Enforcement Division, and Charmaine Backens of the Litigation Division, representing the Executive Director. Pending before you are items 3 through 34. The total assessed administrative penalties are $558,275, with $91,132 deferred, $163,650 applied towards supplemental environmental projects, and $304,493 to the general revenue. We are requesting that item number 18, Worth Oil Company, be remanded to the Executive Director for further case development, and we respectfully request approval of these items and are available to answer any questions you may have.
Ms. Cordell, I have no questions or comments at this point. Commissioner Lindley?
I hope, does that sound better?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Clear. Yeah, thanks. I don't have any questions. I had one comment, and I don't want to, don't take this as a full-on directive to act a certain way, but when I was reading over item number 33, Arnold Trucking, it just seems that, one, it's unfortunate that the site isn't getting cleaned up, but I would just ask the Executive Director to keep a close eye on this facility, this entity, because it seems like they're not taking any action when we've asked them to take it before. And so we need to monitor it closely and act quickly if it looks like it's going to continue to be a problem. That one just stuck out to me, so I wanted to just make that comment. But that's all I have.
Yeah. Thanks, Commissioner Lindley. That one caught my eye, too, as a matter of fact. This is our second enforcement order against this entity on this issue. Arnold Trucking acted indifferently to a legal duty by continuing its unauthorized discharge. So I agree that we need to follow up with them, make sure they come into compliance. Commissioner Janetka, do you have any questions for staff?
No questions from me at this time. I'll just take the moment, since we're not meeting in person, to narrate my vigorous head nodding during both of your previous comments on item number 3. I won't belabor the point, but I'm good to proceed right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the record now reflects vigorous head nodding. Ms. Smith, are there any interested persons signed in to speak?
Yes, on item number 9, we have an individual who signed in and indicated that they don't wish to speak unless the commission has questions. Their presence will be noted for the record.
Thank you. And that takes us to Public Interest Counsel.
Good morning. For the record, Vic McWhorter. I have no objection to the remand requested for item number 18. And with respect to all of the other items, we recommend approval of the orders as presented by the Executive Director.
Thank you, Mr. McWhorter. Colleagues, I agree with that. I think we're at a point where we're ready to entertain a motion. Unless there are any other comments, I'd invite a motion to act on all items except for item 18.
I can make a motion. I move that.
Yeah, Commissioner Lindley.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I move that we remand item 18 to the ED for further case development and adopt items 3 through 17 and 19 through 34 as recommended today by the Executive Director.
I second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Commissioner Lindley, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Janetka?
Aye.
I also vote aye. The motion carries. Ms. Smith, when you're ready, please call item 35.
Item 35 is the consideration of the monthly enforcement report. The Executive Director's staff is here to present the item.
Morning again.
Good morning. Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners, General Counsel, and Public Interest Counsel. My name is Melissa Cordell of the Enforcement Division, and with me is Brian Sinclair of the Enforcement Division and Charmaine Backens of the Litigation Division. We are here to present the monthly enforcement report for fiscal year 2020 through February. There were 768 effective administrative orders issued, and of those, 93 contained supplemental environmental projects. These orders assessed a total of $7,763,814 in penalties, with a payable amount of $4,690,597. $1,832,028 are to be paid towards supplemental environmental projects. 8,168 notices of violation have been issued through either our field offices or review of self-reported data in our central office, and 937 enforcement action referrals have been received. There are 1,619 pending administrative orders with 138 cases that are on the backlog. 196 cases are pending at the Attorney General's office for representation in district court, and 7 judgments have been issued. 2,015 cases are being tracked for compliance. We have included for review a summary of OCE investigative activities for fiscal years 2018, 19, and 20. We are available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. I have none. Commissioner Lindley, any questions?
No questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Janetka?
Likewise, just thank you for the report. I'm fully satisfied with it.
Thank you. Public Interest Counsel.
For the record, Vic McWhorter, I don't have any questions. I appreciate the report. Thank you.
Again, thanks for the report. No action is necessary on this item. So, Ms. Smith, when you're ready, please call item 36.
Item 36 is the consideration for publication of and hearing on proposed amendments to to 30 Texas Administrative Code Section 111.209, implementing House Bill 2386 from the 85th Texas Legislature. The Executive Director's staff is here to present this item.
Good morning. Please go ahead when you're ready.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners, General Counsel, and Public Interest Counsel. On behalf of the Executive Director, I'm Christine Osterrock, Director of the Program Support and Environmental Assistance Division. With me are Keith Sheedy of the Program Support and Environmental Assistance Division and Betty Petikolas with the Environmental Law Division. The proposed rulemaking would implement House Bill 2386 from the 85th Legislature 2017 by amending Section 111.2095 to include volunteer firefighters acting within the scope of their duties to fulfill the requirements for providing supervision of the burning of waste. Staff respectfully recommends approval to propose the publication of and hearing on Chapter 111, Control of Air Pollution from Visible Emissions and Particulate Matter. Staff also respectfully requests permission to make non-substantive revisions to comply with the Texas Register requirements. Thank you, and we're available to answer any questions.
Thank you. I have none. Commissioner Lindley, any questions?
I have none. Thank you.
Commissioner Janeka?
None for me. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Has anyone signed in to speak on this item?
No one is signed in on this one.
And Public Interest Counsel, what are your observations?
For the record, Vic McWhorter, OPIC recommends approval for publication of and hearing on the proposed amendment to Rule 111.209 to implement House Bill 2386 as presented by the Executive Director.
I agree. Thank you for that. And colleagues, as we heard, this is a narrow legislative implementation rulemaking to amend the requirements for supervision of certain outdoor burning activities, specifically by allowing volunteer firefighters to meet the requirements for supervision. And I think it's ready for publication. I'm glad to hear any comments from you or a motion. Commissioner Lindley?
No comments. I agree. It's a straight legislative implementation, and we should move forward.
And Commissioner Janeka?
Likewise, I'm in full agreement. I'll just note that many of our rural counties only have volunteer fire departments, so I feel that this is an important adjustment to make in the rule to keep track with legislation, so I commend staff on it, and I would like to make that motion. I would move that we approve the publication of and hearing on the proposed amendments to 30 Texas Administrative Code Section 111.209 and corresponding revisions to the state implementation plan as recommended by the Executive Director.
I second.
The motion has been made and seconded. Commissioner Lindley, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Commissioner Janeka?
Aye.
I also vote aye. The motion carries. Ms. Smith, I'll please ask you to call the next items when you're ready.
The Commission will be taking up items 37 through 39 together. They are the consideration of the adoption of the new, amended, and repealed sections of 30 Texas Administrative Code Chapters 33, 35, 39, 50, 55, 60, 70, 80, 90, 101, 116, 205, 285, 294, 305, 321, 330, 331, 332, 334, 335, and 350, and corresponding revisions to the state implementation plan as recommended by the Executive Director. The Executive Director's staff is here to present this item.
Morning, and I'll ask staff to go ahead when you're ready.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Can hear you just fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners, General Counsel, and Public Interest Counsel. On behalf of the Executive Director, I am Amy Browning with the Environmental Law Division, here to present agenda items number 37, 38, and 39. These adopted rulemakings are in response to the quadrennial review of chapters 39, 50, 55, and 80 conducted in 2019. On June 12, 2019, the Commission determined that certain rules in each of these subchapters were obsolete and no longer needed. The first of these three projects will repeal those rules. The remaining two rulemakings make necessary amendments to rules and add new rules in response to the repeal. In addition, various stylistic, non-substantive changes are included in these adopted rules. The adopted amendments are organized as two rulemaking projects because 12 of the rules in 4 chapters require a revision to the state implementation plan. The proposed rules were published in the November 8, 2019 issue of the Texas Register. Public hearings were offered on these proposals in Austin on December 10, 2019. The public comment period closed on December 16, 2019. The rule team did not receive comments during the public comment period. The executive director's staff respectfully recommends adoption of the repealed rules in chapters 39, 50, 55, and 80, and the amended rules and revisions to the SIP in chapters 39, 55, 101, and 116, as well as the new and amended rules in chapters 33, 35, 39, 50, 55, 60, 70, 80, 90, 205, 285, 294, 305, 321, 330, 331, 332, 334, 335, and 350. Additionally, the executive director's staff respectfully recommends that the adopted SIP revisions in chapters 39, 55, 101, and 116 be submitted to the EPA for review and approval to the Texas SIP. The executive director's staff also respectfully requests permission to make non-substantive revisions to comply with Texas Register requirements as necessary. Thank you. I am available to answer any questions.
Thank you. I appreciate that. For a relatively straightforward cleanup of our rules, there's not a lot substantively going on here. It is a lot of work. It touches a lot of sections. It's certainly a mouthful. I appreciate that. I don't have any questions. Commissioner Lindley, how about you?
No questions. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Ginecka?
No questions from me other than just to not miss my opportunity to commend staff on juggling a lot of rule language for removal and for clarity and cleanup and simplification. I think I have a lot of praise for some of the new language just aimed at clarifying and trying to make more understandable our rules. So I think this is a really worthwhile, time-intensive effort, but glad to see it. So happy to proceed. Thank you.
Couldn't agree more. Ms. Smith, is there anybody signed in to speak on these items?
No one is registered to address the commission on these items.
Thank you. And Mr. McWhirter, what are your thoughts?
OPIC supports adoption of these rulemakings and corresponding SIP provisions. We agree with the executive director that these changes are consistent with the findings of the recent quad reviews for these chapters.
Thank you. I agree, and colleagues, again, this is a straightforward cleanup of our rules. You know, it's based in part on our quadrennial review. There were no public comments. I'm ready to entertain a motion. Commissioner Lindley?
I will try and get this right. I move that we adopt the new, amended, and repealed sections of 30 Texas Administrative Code chapters 33, 35, 39, 50, 55, 60, 70, 80, 90, 101, 116, 205, 285, 294, 305, 321, 330, 331, 332, 334, 335, and 350, and corresponding revisions to the state implementation plan as recommended by the executive director.
I second that.
The motion has been made and seconded. Commissioner Lindley, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Ginecka?
Aye.
I also vote aye. The motion carries. Ms. Smith, when you're ready, I'll ask you to call the next item.
Item 40 is the consideration of the adoption of amended, repealed, and new rule sections in 30 Texas Administrative Code chapters 295, 297, and 318 regarding marine seawater desalination discharges. The executive director's staff is here to present the item.
Good morning. Go ahead when you're ready.
Good morning, Commissioners, General Counsel, and Public Interest Counsel. On behalf of the Executive Director, I'm Dr. Kathy Alexander with the Water Availability Division, and with me is Lori Fleet with the Water Quality Division and Robin Smith with the Environmental Law Division. The adopted rulemaking would implement House Bill 2031 in the 84th Legislature 2015 regular session by designating appropriate discharge and diversion zones according to the Marine Seawater Desalination Diversion and Discharge Zone Study completed by the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department and the General Land Office. The proposed rulemaking was published in the November 22nd, 2019 issue of the Texas Register. A public hearing was held December 17th, 2019. The comment period closed on January 6, 2020. The rule team did not receive comments during the public comment period. However, the rule team clarified the background in the preamble by adding a sentence restating Texas Water Code Section 18.002C and changed the word approved to identified in 295.302K1 to better reflect the actions taken by the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department and General Land Office in developing the study. In conclusion, staff respectfully recommends adoption of this rulemaking for chapters 295, 297, and 318. Additionally, staff also respectfully requests authorization to make non-substantive revisions necessary to comply with Texas Register requirements. Thank you, and we're available to answer any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Alexander. I have none this morning. Commissioner Lindley, any questions?
No questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Janeka?
None for me.
Smith, is there anyone signed in to speak?
No one on this item.
Thank you. And Mr. McWhorter, what are your thoughts?
OPIC recommends adoption of the proposed changes to the Commission's Chapter 295, 297, and 318 rules to implement House Bill 2031 as presented by the Executive Director.
I agree. Colleagues, again, this is a continuation of our implementation of marine desalination legislation. It incorporates the direction of the Texas Parks and Wildlife Division and the General Land Office as we were instructed. There were no public comments. I think it's appropriate to move forward to final adoption and repeal, and I'm ready to entertain a motion.
I would move that we adopt the amended, repealed, and new rule sections in 30 Texas Administrative Code chapters 295, 297, and 318 as recommended by the Executive Director.
I second.
The motion has been made and seconded. Commissioner Lindley, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Janeka?
Aye.
I also vote aye. The motion carries. Ms. Smith, when you're ready, I'll ask you to call what happens to be our last item. The next item, item 41.
Item 41 is the adoption of amendments to 30 Texas Administrative Code, Section 295.159, and the Executive Director staff is here to present the item.
Good morning. Go ahead when you're ready.
Good morning again, Commissioners, General Counsel, and Public Interest Counsel. On behalf of the Executive Director, I'm Dr. Kathy Alexander with the Water Availability Division, and with me is Robin Smith with the Environmental Law Division. The adopted rulemaking would add Section 295.159C, which would provide an exception from notice requirements in Sections 295.159A and B relating to an application for an extension of time to commence or complete construction of a reservoir designed for storage of more than 50,000 acre-feet of water. This rulemaking resulted from a petition for rulemaking filed with the CCEQ by Lloyd, Gosselin, Rochelle, and Townsend, PC, on behalf of the City of Wichita Falls, the petitioner. The proposed rules were published in the November 8, 2019 issue of the Texas Register. A public hearing was held on December 3, 2019, and the public comment period closed on December 16, 2019. The rule team did receive public comments. All comments were supportive of the rulemaking, and the rule team made no substantive changes to the rules. In conclusion, staff respectfully recommends adoption of this rulemaking for Chapter 295. Additionally, staff requests authorization to make non-substantive revisions necessary to comply with Texas Register requirements. Thank you, and we're available to answer any questions.
I have none. Thank you again, Dr. Alexander. Commissioner Lindley, any questions or comments?
No questions or comments. Thanks, staff.
Commissioner Janeka?
No questions from me. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Smith, is there anyone signed in to speak on this item?
We have one individual who signed in but indicated that they don't wish to address the commission, and their presence will be noted for the record.
Thank you. And Mr. McWhirter, what are your thoughts?
OPIC recommends adoption of the amendment to Rule 295.159 as presented by the Executive Director.
Thank you. I agree. I want to thank the petitioner for bringing this item to our attention. We did receive a few comments on this item, all in support of the proposed amendment, and I think it's appropriate to move forward with adoption. Commissioner Lindley, I think you might be up. If you don't have any comments, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we adopt the proposed amendments to 30 Texas Administrative Code, Chapter 295, as recommended by the Executive Director.
I second that motion.
Motion has been made and seconded. Commissioner Lindley, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Ginecka, how do you vote?
Aye.
I also vote aye. The motion carries. And Ms. Smith, when you're ready, I'll ask you to call the next items.
Items 42 through 45 are for closed session, and the commission will not meet in closed session today.
So with that, the time is 10:16 and we are adjourned.